Hi, I'm Christian. Have you ever been a part of something that made you super excited? I can remember one time my favorite band was coming to town, and I really wanted to help out with the show. I helped guide people to their seats and set up and take down some of the equipment, and it just felt so exciting to be a part of it. Let's check out today's God story and see how all these different people came together to play a role in God's big story. Watch this.
Why did the picture go to jail? Because it was framed. Hi everybody, it's Jen. I'm so glad that I am here with you again today. I want to tell you a story about when I was in grade 7 and I got to be a part of a musical at my church. I was really excited about this musical, but we all had to try out and audition to get different parts in the play. So I had to go in and practice. I had to sing and do some speaking and stuff. And I was a little bit nervous waiting to see what part I would get. But as it turned out, I ended up getting the lead role. I was the prodigal son, or prodigal daughter. They changed it because of me. But it was a really fun experience to be a part of this musical with all of my friends. So this story reminds me of today's big idea. Everyone has a part to play in God's big story. So today's God story is about Israel, aka Jacob. Do you remember Jacob? He's the grandson of Abraham, the son of Isaac. He tricked his dad into getting his brother's blessing. He ran away from Esau. Then he had a dream. He got married, had 12 kids, made peace with his brother, and then got his name changed to Israel. Yeah, that Jacob. Well, his story continues, and we're going to catch up with him and his family in Genesis chapter 35. Here's what happens next. So Jacob had just made a special altar at a place called Bethel where God had talked to him. So they started to travel from that place when Jacob's wife, Rachel, began to go into labor. She was going to have a baby. So let's read what happened. The woman who helped her saw that she was having problems. So she said to her, "Don't be afraid, you have another son." But Rachel was dying. As she took her last breath, she named her son Benoni, but his father named him Benjamin. So Rachel died. Her body was buried on the road to Bethlehem, and Jacob set a pillar up over her tomb. So just to recap, Rachel went into labor and had a baby, and her midwife told her that she had a son, Jacob's 12th son to be exact. Because of complications, Rachel died. They buried her and set up a pillar for her. And Jacob named his 12th son Benjamin. Sometimes we can read things in the Bible like what happened to Rachel and ask, why is that in there? Why do we have to know that Rachel gave birth and then died? But this is all a part of God's big story. You see, Rachel gave birth to the last son of Jacob. So these 12 sons that Jacob now has are going to become the 12 tribes of Israel. So it might have seemed in this story that Rachel was just giving birth to another little boy, but this little boy was going to be a part of this huge nation of Israel. Rachel played a huge part in the story of Israel, which reminds me of today's big idea. Everyone has a part to play in God's big story. So you and I are a part of the same big story that Rachel is a part of. Now, obviously, we're going to play a different part than she did, but all of us are in the story. So in the musical I was telling you about earlier, I got to play the role of the prodigal daughter, but there were lots of other roles in this musical too. There was the father, the other daughter, the sheep, the pigs, there were soloists. There were about 50 people involved in this musical, so it was really fun that me and my friends all got to play a part of this production. As Christ followers, we each have a part to play in God's big story. All of us have the job of going and making disciples, which means telling others about Jesus and showing them the ways to follow him. But we also have different jobs based on our unique giftings from the Holy Spirit. See, God has given each of us different gifts. Some of you may have the gift of welcoming new people so that they feel like they're a part of everything. Some of you might be good at encouraging people who may feel sad. Me, I have the gift of teaching, and so I love to teach other people. All of us have been given a different job in God's big story. So no matter how old you are or what you think you can or can't do, you need to know that everyone has a part to play in God's big story. So it's been great hanging out with you guys. I've had so much fun. I hope you have a great rest of the week.
Hey, turn to the person next to you. Willem!
And answer the questions before the time runs out.
Question time.
Rachel had a role in God's story. What was it, and how did it impact the future?
Wow, that was interesting. Did you catch that we didn't necessarily read a lot about Rachel, but she still had a very important part to play in God's story? And the same applies to us. We may not always see the value in the small things we do, but these things can bring about change in people's lives. Let's check in with Samara and see more about her life story.
I'm Samara, and I love cleaning. I love cleaning dishes, scrubbing out toilet bowls, sweeping, all that stuff. No, I don't. But I do like playing violin, running, and drawing. So about 8 years ago, my dad got connected with this older lady who just needed a lot of help with everyday things. And so my sister and I, we began to clean for her. Sometimes we take her dog out for a walk because the dog, it just didn't get to go outside that often. It wasn't always the nicest because like the dog would poop inside the house. It didn't have very good manners, I guess you could say, for a dog. So we just help out and like take the dog for a walk, stuff like that. And then inside, I do a lot in the kitchen, you know, cleaning up dishes, making sure everything was like neat and tidy. There wasn't like food left out, stuff like that. And then we'd go on and we'd sweep and mop and vacuum the floors, dust things, just anything to keep up on the house because we just needed to make sure that it didn't get way too unruly. She didn't really have a lot of people who she could connect to. My family and I were some of the only people who really interacted with her, which meant that we really did our best to like keep her company. So, you know, we just like make her tea sometimes and we just be very intentional about connecting with her and talking to her and giving her someone to have company with. Other places that I can show God's love is through the youth group at my church called Echo. We have a student leadership team there called the Catalyst team, where students can choose to just be a closer part of the Echo community. This means that we set up before events. We help wherever it's needed. If they need someone to just set up chairs or tables, we do that. If they need someone to serve food or interact with kids, because we have a lot of like new students who come, and so we have to make sure that we interact with them, make them feel welcome, make them feel like they're a part of the community, stuff like that. So we just do our best to help out wherever it's needed. Cleaning isn't always, you know, the most fun thing to do, but it is like a really good way to just help serve others. I think it's a really humbling experience. It shows that other people are really important too, and everyone deserves to like be shown God's love. And so I think it's just really good for me to like remind myself that if I were in their position, I'd really appreciate this help. And it's a very good feeling to know that like you can serve others and show them God's love.
Samara mentioned that she was very intentional about helping a senior citizen in her community. I think the key to Samara's role in her community was that she wanted to show God's love to others, and that's something we all can do in many different ways. So let's break into our small groups and see how this looks in our own lives.